Talk and Rock Radio, where friends meet at the intersection of life, inspiration, and music. Here's your host, Rick Kern.
Welcome, everyone, to Talk and Rock Radio. My guest today is a Texas Music Awards singer and Songwriter of the Year, an Emmy-winning songwriter, Kerrville and Napa Valley Festival winner, and this guy is, well, what can I say? He's written some songs that Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings did. Welcome all the way from Austin, Texas, Bob Cheevers. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, man. The camera's there and you're there. I don't know how that works, but
well,
a beautiful day in Austin, Texas, by the way.
Well, that's great, man. I'm glad to hear that. You know, let's talk about your beginnings. You know, you're from Memphis, Tennessee, right?
That's right. I was actually born in New London, Connecticut, but only because my mom had driven up to visit my dad, who was in the Navy in New London, and I was there for, I think, a month. I was born there, and then my grandmother actually took me home on the train back to Memphis while my mom and her sister drove my dad's Oldsmobile, 1943 Oldsmobile convertible back to Memphis.
Wow. And then you...
I had that car now.
You, yeah, no kidding, man. You, and then you left Memphis. Give us a chronological how all that happened. I know you've been out in L.A., you've been to Nashville, you've toured all over Europe, you know, every year. I mean, let's talk about that.
Well, my early years were spent in Memphis with my mom, and my aunt both had failed marriages, and they went back to their mom and dad's house. So I grew up with my mom and my aunt and her daughter and my grandmother and grandfather in this wonderful, great big house on Claybrook Street in Memphis, which is now the barrio. Wonderful childhood, big family. We had family dinners, and my mom and my aunt, my grandmother all played piano. My mom played every single day. She was in a bit of a radio star in the 20s and 30s, and their radio station was in the bottom of the Peabody Hotel. If you've been to Memphis, the Peabody Hotel was one of the beautiful landmarks, and she quit radio to have me, and then decided, instead of going back to radio, she decided to raise her only child, and did that with grace and elegance, and hopefully a good job. After college, I went to Memphis State University at the time, and it's called University of Memphis now. So studied psychology and sociology. I was going to be a psychiatrist or a therapist until one of my buddies and I would sit in what's called the student center, and we'd sing along with a jukebox. And one day he said, let's start a band. So we got a couple of our fraternity brothers, started a little combo. It was called Bob Wind and the Screens, because of the Rolling Stones song that had the line in it, I woke up and had parking tickets were stuck on my windscreen, which is what in England they called a windshield, what we call a windshield.
Yeah.
We played fraternity parties. It was in my blood at that point. It had been in my blood for really years by then, because in the 50s, Elvis, Roy Orbison, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, all the great Memphis rock and rollers, Billy C. Riley and the Dorsey brothers, all of them were just young guys that were rocking in my city, and that caught my attention, and it has never left me. And for years, my mom said, she'd come home, I'd be listening to the radio, rocking in my rocking chair, which later my therapist said, we're going to find the rocking chair inside you, which I thought was a great thing. But she'd say, "Get that trash off the radio and get some good music like Benny Goodman or Paul Whiteman." Her songs, the stuff that she loved. She liked Elvis. She liked one song of the Beatles. Oddly, it was Day Tripper. Didn't really like the songs that I wrote until I won an Emmy, and suddenly she was my biggest fan, and I was in awe of her growing up. She played piano every day, and she was really good. And it never occurred to me to play the piano. And I asked for guitar lessons. I think I was 8 when I was in junior high school, and I think that lasted a couple of months, and then I had a bad report card. I think I made an F in math, and she thought that my guitar lessons were getting in the way of my math. So I quit. She had basically stopped those. Of course, math and music are completely related, but that's not how she saw it, and it doesn't matter anyway because I did what I did. But her inspiration of doing her music and seeing her love for it, and it was just, and same with my grandmother and my aunt, when they'd sit down at the piano, they became different people. I felt like I could see colors around them when they played, and I just get chill bumps. I've never thought of that before, but so that was magic for me. That instilled in me at least the knowing that there was something surreal about playing an instrument and about singing and about just music itself. And I didn't realize it then, but my education went out the window, so to speak, and then the music took over, and I moved to Southern California, 1966, after college, and I went to Capitol Records because the Beatles and the Beach Boys were on Capitol, and I thought, I want to work for Capitol Records. So they said, well, you're really overqualified for this third floor stockroom supervisor job. And I said, I'll take it. And minimum pay. I was married at the time. My new wife was pregnant, and it was a pretty serious time in my life, but there I was. We'd go to these Capitol Records cocktail parties that they had every month, and where they would introduce they would bring one of their artists out who was having a hit at the time. Bobby Gentry was one of them, Glenn Campbell, just any number of people who were on Capitol we got to meet. Didn't get to meet the Beatles, but I did meet Ringo later in life. But that was quite an experience, and they sent me to the Xerox school to learn to operate the Xerox machine, which back then was the size of a Buick. And everybody from the janitor to the president would come to me to get their copies made, because I was the guy I was a supervisor of the third floor stockroom. Come on. And because I like to talk, obviously, and I made friends with all these people, and including the lady in the publishing department. And one day I asked her if she would listen to some songs of mine. I gave her a reel-to-reel, and she took it up to her office and put it on her tape machine, and you have one behind you similar to the one she had. And as she was playing it, this guy came in, an independent producer named Dan Dalton, came in and said, "Who is that?" And she said, "It's the kid down in the third floor stockroom." And he said, "That's the voice I've been looking for to sing on the track that I just cut last week." So he called me down in the third floor stockroom, and I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. Within a couple of weeks, I was in the studio recording this song, which I'd never been in the studio before. Within a few weeks, I had a major label deal with Dot Records, who, along with Brian Hyland, remember Red Polka Dot Bikini, what was that?
Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny?
Gallo Polka Dot Bikini.
Yeah.
I think Neil Diamond was on that label. Anyway, it was a major label record deal. So suddenly I was in the middle of things that I'd never even dreamed of. And it went from there. And I know you ask about my Elvis years, so to speak. Between college years, I worked for an organization in Memphis called Shelby United Neighbors, and the purpose of that organization was to collect money from businesses and people to give to charities. And each year Elvis would give $50,000. So I went to his house at Graceland several times with my executive director. But this one year, 1963 it was, we stopped at the gates. The gates opened as they did when somebody was allowed to come in. We drove up, pulled up under the thing, knocked on the doors, which were about 20 feet tall. The door opened, and there's the most famous man in the world, Elvis. And he invited us in, shook our hands, introduced himself, introduced us to his dad, who was in the living room waiting there for us. Priscilla was in the kitchen fixing Elvis's famous lunch or meal, which was a hollowed out loaf of bread with a pound of bacon and I don't know how many, maybe a half pound of Velveeta cheese. Low-cal. He didn't eat it then. We had a chat and we talked about where the money was going, and at one point he handed the $50,000 check to my executive director, who said, "Give that to Bob." Elvis turns to me and said, "Bob, here's $50,000." And I remember my hand shaking when I went out to pick up the check. And as I grabbed it, and we were both holding on to that check, I said, "Elvis," and my knees were shaking, I said, "There's something that I need more than this check." And he said, "Well, what's that?" I said, "I need to use your toilet." And so he said, "Well, it's right across there." He pointed across this room, the living room that had a white shag carpet that was about that deep. I remember as I walked across, my shoes sunk into that carpet up to my ankles. And remember, all this is just memory. It's like coming out of a serious surgery when you're coming back to reality. That's how it is for me to tell this story. I got to the bathroom, I did my business, and it was one of those moments where I prayed that the toilet would flush. And it did. And I remember opening the door and seeing Elvis Presley standing there, and all I could hear was the toilet flushing. And I walked back and then accepted the check from him, and and he kind of showed us around, and we left. And it was, to the extent that I just explained it, it's impossible to recreate that for anybody other than myself. And I can't even appropriately, or however what the word is, to myself, because it's such a vivid yet surrealistic memory. I just go off into these. When I was little and in grammar school, I have what's called a wandering eye. That I had 3 operations before I was 5 years old, but to try to correct it, and it's still not really corrected. But I would look out the window and I could let my eye wander and go into this daydream thing, which I can still do. But back then, I remember my teachers in different classes, I could hear them way in the background saying, Bobby Cheevers, come back." And that's the way it feels telling that story. And that's the way a lot of my life feels, just living it.
It's great. It's a great story, man. It's a really, really great story. You have written over 3,000 songs, and you have performed with some really great entertainers in your life, had some great experiences. Of course, one of them being Johnny Cash. I guess you were the last guy that played with Johnny before he passed, right? As far as the warm-up act, is that right?
Yes. Another surrealistic experience. I worked with a guy who I met, who introduced me to Stephen McClintock, our mutual friend, Brad Colrick, and Brad had done a commercial with Cash. I think it was a Chevy commercial, and he met Cash's. He got Cash to do that through Cash's manager, Lou Robin, who's a wonderful guy. I think he was a wonderful guy. I don't think he's alive anymore, but through him, Brad, I think, no, that's a different story. Somehow, we got, through Brad and through Lou, we got to do the thing with Cash. And backstage, he would always, he'd get off his bus, he'd come in, he'd be wearing this long coat, this as you see pictures of him in. We would have a chat, and after we did our show, which was with Charlie White and playing guitar, and the bass player was, I can't think of his name right now. So Lou and Cash's handler would walk him to the stage and take his long coat off, give him a little shove. He'd walk out to the mic, put his hand on the mic every time he played, and he'd say, "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash." And the only time he turned was when he turned to have his wife come up, invite her to come up and sing a song. So the one night, the last night he ever played in front of a live audience as in a performance, he dropped his guitar pick and he bent over to pick it up and he fell over, and except for the one song that he played at his wife's family, the Carter family, I forget what it was, a reunion or something, he played a single song. Except for that song, the last night of that tour was the last time he played. And he spent the next 2 years in recouping from the stroke, whatever it was that had happened, but he was never the same, and he just went downhill in a good cut.
Yeah. You, when I first learned about you from mutual friends Terry Quinlan and Stephen McClintock, as you referred to, I immediately went to YouTube and started listening to your music. And I just picked a random song and I'm listening to it and I'm going, wow, he sounds a lot like Willie.
I'm a fan of the red-headed stranger and the way he lives life on his bus, laughing and loving, singing and playing. And when you meet him, he's just like one of us. From Nashville to the Badlands of Texas, Waylon and Cash and Chris by his side, highwaymen on their musical horses, but Willie's voice stands out when they ride. When I sing, people say, you sound just like Willie. I don't try to do it, it just comes out that way. How often I hear, you sound just like Willie. but I'm a Tennessee hillbilly, and I smile when folks say, you sound just like Willie.
And then I look down as I'm listening to the song to see what the song is called, and the name of the song is "You Sound Just Like Willie." So anyway, tell us about the writing of that song, Bob.
When I moved to Texas in 2008, until then nobody had ever said you sound like anybody. And when I moved here, I have chronically infected sinuses, and also did a lot of things during the 60s and 70s and 80s that probably affected the way my voice sounds. And it's just the way I sing, which is a lot like the way Willie sings, and it has nothing to do with certainly him or me trying to sound alike. But every time I played, at least one person, if not 10 or 15 people, would come up after the show and say, you know who you sound like? I can't believe it. You sound so much like. So sort of out of defense of that, or out of appreciation for it, would be a better way to put it, I made up that song, You Sound Just Like Willie. And his daughter, there's an organization here called Austin Songwriters Group that I'm on the advisory board of that group. And one of the supporters, and Lee Duffy is the lady who runs that, and one of her best friends is one of Willie's daughters, who I've met, and who said she would get that song. All I wanted was for Willie just to hear the song, and I think she misunderstood and thought I was pitching the song to Willie to do. It'd be kind of stupid to pitch him a song saying, you sound just like Willie. But the possibilities that could come from me meeting Willie, which has never happened, it seemed like would be just infinitesimal. Here's this guy, this Cheevers guy, who sounds just like me, or people say he does, and people said, you need to hear this guy. And I thought, one of these nights he's going to walk in and hear my show. And Lee, and I understand this completely, if you know Willie or if you know Elvis or whoever, you don't misuse or overuse your connection with that person, because it's special, and they get inundated by that all the time from everybody else. So none of my friends who know Willie have made the choice to introduce me, and I just thought one day I'd get on his bus, and I'd have to, in 2 or 3 days, I'd have to have him carry me off,
My son has been on his bus, and he was there photographing when Willie's, a lot of his new items that he's selling, that he's marketing, were there, and that was kind of the showcase moment when Ricky was shooting for Getty Images to take pictures of that. But that'll happen, and one of Willie's favorite places that he likes to go to, I'll just tell you, is the Moon River Bar, which is right near where he lives, off the country club there. So you ought to go and just hang out there, have a beer some night, and go to Moon River Bar, and he likes to hang there. The night we were there, I was listening to a friend of mine in his band, and anyway, he said, yeah, Willie will probably show up tonight, and because he loves to come out here, and it's just close to his house and everything. Well, I don't know if you remember, but at that time, that was one of the nights that he got stopped at Sierra Blanca and got busted. He never made it to the bar that night. So anyway, that's just one of my Willie stories, but we did meet Willies Plumber. He was there at the bar that night. He was hitting on my daughter, in fact. So anyway, but
Was he on his bus on the way to the bar that night? I wonder if if he goes from his house to the bar on his bus.
I don't know. All I know is he was coming back from El Paso, I guess, or something. He was driving to Sierra Blanca, and they busted him. And I guess when they stopped, they could smell whatever. We know what it was, but anyway, that's what happened. But it that's the way it goes. Hey, but we've been talking a lot, and I'm anxious for you to share your talents. Why don't you pick up your guitar, man, and let's get some music going here. You got your fingers all limbered up there, and
well, since this COVID thing, I haven't played a gig since March the 6th of 2020.
wow.
I'm sitting in my studio now. I call it Studio Geronimo because we live on Geronimo Trail in an area called, Geronimo Trail, Apache Shores, and there's no sidewalks. It's very rural, and it's very hilly, and I can look out my window and see up on the hills. There's these multi-million-dollar houses. We live on a really nice hill that kind of overlooks the little creek. I know where I was going with that, but this is, I'm working on I'm producing 2 records, ironically, one's for my dentist, one's for my orthopedic surgeon. And here in the studio, where I've been sitting for since COVID started. I think I've become sedentary, except for occasionally, every time I record a song, I play my guitar parts. But other than that, I haven't played a gig since the 6th of March 2020, except for 68 back-to-back Facebook Live shows that I did for an hour and a half each. But that was sort of a year ago. So here goes. I haven't played this song. A lady in England and I wrote this song, and my memory is just completely gone. I can't remember her name right now. It's called Big City Gambler from Tombstone. It was originally going to be Big City Gambler from Bristol, and it was going to be an English song, but I couldn't find much to rhyme with Bristol, and it didn't seem like a big city gambler and the town of Bristol on the coast of England went together, so I changed it. How's that for an introduction? He was a crazy old man with nerves of ice. He was lucky when he rolled his grandfather's dice. His eyes were hollowed out circles of blue. Pearl-handled pistols in both of his boots. Everyone knew him, and they left him alone. He was a big city gambler, Tombstone, not Bristol. His grandfather's dice could talk, they would tell stories of heaven and tales about hell. Out on the prairie where lies get overgrown, just the mention of his name cut right to the bone. He lived his life in the danger zone. He was a big city gambler, Tombstone. lawless nights when the snake eyes flew. He made good money and he charmed a few. Yes, he did. Crazy man's blood in this peaceful old man. Hey, big city gambler, what's your big plan? You're gonna go into town to the Last Chance Saloon or the Blue Moon Bar. Lay down your money like you used to do. He'd been handy with his guns and a bowie knife. Now he was on the downhill side of his life, feeling remorse for the things he did. Then he met a young man named Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid. The kid was an outlaw. He was fast with a gun. If you needed quicksilver, yeah, he was the one. Yes, he was. The day he was born, the crops in the field, they died in the sun, and time stood still. His mama took sick and died of TB. He became an outlaw at the age of 14. He went by the name of William H. Bonney, but his real name was William McCarty. It didn't matter when he came into town, another grave was dug on Boot Hill before sundown. Before sundown. One day, the kid came up with a plan. He got on his horse and rode out to see that crazy old man. He said, let's you and me go down to New Mexico, start a new life where nobody knows the men we have been and the things that we've done. Wages of sin that began with a gun. The old man sat in his chair for a while, like I'm doing right now. He didn't say a word. Then he started to smile. He got a bottle of whiskey down from the shelf. He said, I'd like to drink this stuff, but not by myself. He proposed a toast to Billy's plan, and then he said, if I were a much younger man, I'd saddle up and away we'd go down to the Badlands of New Mexico. But I'm gonna stay in this one-horse town and live out my life till they lay me down. Billy said, I understand. He said, the road is no place for a crazy old man. He tipped his hat as he rode away. Storm rolling in, the sky was turning gray. The old man sat on the porch all alone. A big city gambler from Tombstone. Yes, that old man sat there on the porch all alone. He was a big city gambler from Tombstone. Tanya Sorrell and Lester England wrote this song with me. I just remembered her name. She came up with so many of the best lines. Big city gambler from Tombstone, baby. Does that sound like Willie to you?
Oh, man, I love that. That's a good story. There's a good friend of mine here in El Paso. He and his wife, they belong to a group called Six Guns and Shady Ladies. And they go and reenact Billy the Kid, at the bar and the shooting and all of that. It's really I'll send you some video of them. They're award winning, and we're all really good buddies, go way back, and they'll love that song. They'll really like that. So
speaking of that kind of reenactment thing, the Emmy that I won was for it was for the best historical musical composition of 1986, and it was for my song Big City Gambler. Just Big City Gambler. It wasn't from Tombstone, but we did a music video. A group of LA film company came up to Northern California, and we hired a Civil War reenactment group of guys to be part of the video. We took over the whole town of Fiddletown, so there wasn't much to it. There was a motel and a bar which hadn't been opened in 50 years. It had whiskey on the walls, poker chips, cards. Everything in there was perfectly preserved from over 100 years ago.
Oh, nice.
It was in 86, so it was a real thing. But those reenactment people, they're something else, and they're really dedicated.
Totally dedicated. They do this show every year. They travel, they go to different places and perform it. And like I said, they are award winning, but they are very passionate about it, and they do a great job. I've served on the El Paso Historical Commission with Bernie. He was our chairman, and just a really smart, dedicated to El Paso history, and he's on the El Paso History radio show every Saturday. You can tune in on iHeartRadio and catch it. They're doing live streaming now, and I think you'd enjoy the show. It's all about El Paso history, but they do a really good job. A guy by the name of Jackson Polk and Melissa Sargent, who is the wife of Billy the Kid, man. So anyway, it's pretty cool.
Jackson Polk, that's a good name. That sounds like a gunslinger's name.
Which name?
Jackson Polk.
Oh, Jackson Polk. Yeah, he's quite a guy. I've been on the radio with him probably no less than 25 or 30 times. We've always had a good time working together. And in fact, I'll be plugging their show at the end of this show in the credits at the back, on the back end. But
I've never been to El Paso. I'm gonna have to come down and see you people.
Well, we're friendly folk, man. We live out here on the tip of Texas where nobody wants to claim us. New Mexico doesn't want us. Texas doesn't want us. But and Mexico comes right across. I'm probably 15 minutes from Mexico from my house, so it's pretty crazy. What else you want to do, man? Do another song? Or you want to do one on the keyboard, or what are you thinking? What's your choice?
One of the things that I'm since the COVID thing started, I've written, I think 86 or 87 songs. It's a sort of a record for me. I've written for 5 or 6 major publishing companies, and all I had to do was write 20 songs a year, which for me, 40 or 50 is an average. But to have written 86 songs in just over a year, there's nothing else to do. Well, I mean, there's a lot to do, but the lockdown for all of us has been pretty severe. And fortunately for me, I had my alternative was to sit here and write, and which I feel like I've done a really good job of doing. And so I'm in the process of putting together a 6-volume set of those songs. There'll be at least 10 songs, maybe 11 songs on each of the 6 volumes. I won't do, they won't be CDs, they'll just be downloads. And mainly just to keep my friends and fans in music. But one of the volumes is duets with some of my favorite girl singers. And this song is called Love and Pain. It's a minute and 48 seconds long. Christine Albert, who is married to Chris Gage. Chris Gage was Jerry Jeff Walker's guitar player, well, multitask musician for years. Christine has been the head of the, the Music Naris. I don't think she is now, but anyway, she's the duet singer lady on this song called Love and Pain. And interestingly, my pain management guy, who was a dear friend of mine also, apparently I told him that I was going to write a song for him, and he asked me a month or so ago, basically, where's my song? So I needed to write something. I wanted to write something fast, and I tried to think about what to write about him, and I thought of this one-verse song called Love and Pain. And because I love this guy, and also he's my pain management guy, I thought this song would fit perfectly, and I wrote a second verse for him, but that's not what I'm going to play now. This is what Christine Albert and I did the duet on, and I've never played this, so let's see. How can the heart feel so much love at the same time so much pain? Like in life, when you lose someone, but all those memories linger on. My mother said, son, there's a price to be paid by those who love so deep. It starts way down in the heart, and you feel like you're falling apart. But all that remains is love and pain. Love and pain. Except for missing this chord up here, which is really hard to get to for me. Isn't that a beautiful song?
That is, man, I can hear some nice harmony on that. I can hear some strings on that, some cello. Yeah, I think you need to explore that one some more, man.
Well, one of the ladies who is another duet singer is Sarah Hickman, who is, a street has been named after Sarah. here in Austin because she's such a formidable artist and person. And she said a string quartet, that's all that song needs. And she suggested a friend of ours, a string guy here in Austin. But I have on my recording of it with Christine, it's just my guitar and a little bit of my Gretsch electric and a little bit of a B3, and it's just perfect, you know.
If you need a cellist, my daughter's in Austin. She lives just a little ways from you. She'll play.
Come over and play a part, you think? Really?
She's done some studio work there for, a couple of her friends. In fact, one of them was just playing the other night at Austin City Limits, doing her thing. I can't think of her name, but she's done very well. She's been opening act for Heart, I think. She's been doing touring with Heart and been playing with them. Emily, I can't think of Emily's last name right now, but her first name's Emily. Really good guitarist, singer, but my daughter's done some work with her in the studio for some of her recordings. But yeah.
That would be great, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I have a couple of music programs, and cello is my favorite instrument other than, well, I guess acoustic guitar and my Gretsch White Falcon things. But there's a program called that I use called Miroslav Philharmonic, and it's got all the instruments of a philharmonic and about 5 different versions of each instrument. So, and these are, anything is available now in the computer. Live musicians are sort of a thing of the past, but there's nothing like, especially a cello player for me, because the resonance in that and the sound of the bow, and even though these music programs create that also, it's just, I would love for her to come sit here and play a part.
Well, maybe we can make that happen, my friend. Out of all of the performers that you have grown up to love and everything, who has been your biggest inspiration, Bob? You're such a passionate, sensitive writer. Who could you really say has inspired you the most?
Well, there are 3 people. Neil Young is the first, and it started with his song, Nowadays Clancy Can't Even Sing, which was on maybe the first Buffalo Springfield album. He wrote it, I think he was 16 when he wrote it, and I believe he was 18 with the Springfield when they recorded it. And I think I was 20 or 21 maybe when I heard that song, living at the beach in Southern California with my wife. And I heard that, and I thought, certainly not comparing anything I did then at all with what Neil was doing then, because at his age, and so many people, when they're young, they're just incredibly talented, and that wasn't me. But when I heard that, I thought, I want to do that. I can do that. I couldn't do it then. I think I knew I couldn't. Anyway, Neil and then Joni Mitchell and Jackson Browne, the 2 other people, whose songs, and this all happened at once. We were living in Southern California when all of the stuff in the Laurel Canyon crew was happening, and I was part of all that, and to have heard those people's songs and where they came from and their heart and soul, and I'd never heard songs like that, because in the 50s and 60s, well, 50s anyway, there weren't songs like that, and then that happened, and it had never really happened before, or sure, it happens somewhere along the line, but I'm saying these were people that completely changed the complexion and the landscape of music because of the place from which their songs came. So it was at that point that where I began to find out who I was as a writer. And also because Neil was my favorite artist, I had the cojones, as they say, to go to his manager, one of his managers at that time, there were three of them, and asked them if they would like to manage me, and they said yes. Ron Stone, it was Ron Stone, Elliot Roberts, and David Geffen, who had a company that managed Neil and Joni, and I think the Eagles at that point. So I was in a pretty heavy company, and I say that I slept in Joni's bed and wrote songs on her piano, which is true, and I can say that because the house that she lived in when she wrote her big record called Ladies of the Canyon was at the top of a street called Lookout Mountain in Laurel Canyon. And she gave that house to my manager, Ron Stone, who was her manager also, along with David and Elliot. And I would go, my wife Nancy at the time and I left Southern California and moved to a 40-acre ranch in Northern California. And I'd go back to Hollywood and I'd stay with Ron in Joni's house and sleep in her bed and play songs on her piano. So at least I could say that. And there's another story. I played at the Bluebird. I played hundreds of times at the Bluebird in Nashville. But one time, what was touted as the 4 greatest writers to ever come out of Memphis were playing a show that night. It was Dan Penn, Spooner Oldham, Keith Sykes, and me. And we were doing an end around, and behind me, come on, memory. Who's the girl that was in Rodney Crowell's band? Or
Allison Krauss? Oh, not Emmy Lou.
Emmy Lou, yes.
Okay.
Lou and her mom were sitting right behind me, and so I got through playing a song, and just as I finished playing, I heard this kind of a bit of a crash right behind me, and I turned around. So anyway, the story, I can say that I picked Emmy Lou up at the Bluebird Cafe one night, and it's true, but it's true because I turned around and Emmy Lou was on the floor, and I picked her up off the floor. So those are my stories about picking up Emmy Lou and sleeping in Joni Mitchell's bed. They're true stories. It's
not too many people can say all of that, man.
And my motto is, I don't know whether these stories are true, but they happened to me.
There you go. I love it. I love that. Let's hear something a little different now on the keyboard.
Okay, let me change my little thing around. Pull my chair up. Move into my piano playing space. See if this is going to work. Okay. A girl named Lauren Robert, she's from New York, but I needed a very strong woman to sing this song, to be my duet partner with this song. I don't think anybody has ever addressed this topic in music, and I would like to do something to happen to this song because I think it's an important song. It's called "In Love with a Woman." Again, it goes like this. See ya. And it sounds like this. Hey, I've been out walking. That's Jackson Brown's song, though. So you finally got your independence. She's gone, and you can rest easy. Now you can be happy No one to watch you growing old and crazy. No one there to hold you and remind you of that chip on your shoulder. Maybe you weren't paying attention and didn't listen when she tried to tell you that her whole life was changing, and she wanted you to know. She fell in love with a woman, and there was no way in her life you could compete. She fell in love with a woman. Now she feels like her life is complete. And it had nothing to do with you. She fell in love with a woman. She didn't leave because you hurt her. She didn't leave you for another man. Now you know the whole story. I hope you'll try to understand that she was following her heart down a road not taken. She fell in love with a woman, and there was no way in the world you could compete. She fell in love with a woman. Now she feels at last that her life is complete. And it had nothing to do with you. Why, just last night, I was driving home from my studio. I stopped in a bar in downtown Santa Fe. There they were at a table in the corner, listening to music at the Cowgirl Cafe. Somewhere between fire and rain and Take It Easy, after the singer played Let It Be, they came over and sat out at my table. She introduced us and whispered this to me. I fell in love with a woman. I fell in love with a woman. And there was nothing in the world you could do to compete. Come on now, what about that topic? Nobody's talked about that. Well, people talk about it, but I don't think anybody's written a song about it. Who do you think could do that song?
Oh, man.
I'll tell you who I wanted to do it, and it's still in the pipeline, but, and of course I can't think of her name. Oh, shit. A great folk singer, yeah, a great
Carol, trying to think who, not Joni Mitchell.
She's a gay lady.
Oh, um,
Uh,
oh, I know who you're thinking of.
it's funny because I met her in way there's a club in I think it's Boston called Club Passim, and I was playing a show there. She was sweeping the floor, and came up after my show and she said, "I really like your music," and now she's a huge.
I know who you're talking about, and as soon as we get done with this episode, it's going to come to both of us.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yikes.
my friend in L.A. who is Ringo's videographer. I want to say PJ. I think it's two initials. I mean,
Yes.
anyway, he knows her and is going to get that song to her eventually.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think she would be a real good choice on that one.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think it's a killer song, and Lauren knocked it out of the park with her passionate rendition of it. This album, this group of 6 volumes, it's called, they're called The Way They Were Written, and it's because the guitar vocal or the piano vocal of each of the songs that's on each of these 80 plus songs, the guitar vocal or piano vocal is what I used as the basis on which the rest of the stuff was piled, other parts was piled to finish the song. Some of them will just be either the guitar vocal or piano vocal, but most of them, I have about 60 of them in the process of producing, with I'm playing all the instruments, and well, not all of them. I have friends around the world who are contributing parts, but it's fascinating, as you know, to have a studio, and somebody's always done this stuff for me, and now I because of COVID, I started doing it myself, and I found out I can actually play parts by myself and make up symphony arrangements, quartet stuff. I have any instrument that I ever dreamed of. One of my songs has an oboe, a bassoon, and a tuba on it.
I can't wait to hear it. It'll be nice. It'll be nice to hear that. Well, my friend, it's like all good things. There's finally going to be an end to it. I have really enjoyed being with you today.
Me too, man, and thank you and everybody who's listening, and everybody out there in the whole world. It's up to us, and kindness and heartfulness and honesty and the truth and being who we are in the best way we can be is the answer to, I think, all the problems in the world, including the problems I've caused by being here on this show with Rick.
Well, I got to tell you, Bob, that, our good friend Stephen McClintock is going to be moving your direction pretty soon. And I'm really glad, because I'll be able to see him, and he'll be coming over there your direction and where our kids are at too. And I definitely will relish savor the time that the three of us guys can get together.
Is he moving Austin or where?
Well, he's going to be moving to Kerrville area.
Yeah.
So he's just going to be up the street from you, or down the street. And, it's close enough, an hour and a half away, not that far. And who knows, man, maybe we can make a plan sometime and hook up at your place in Austin, and we'll be up there with our kids once things get back to semi-normal again. They're coming to be with us on the 15th for about a week. It'll be the first time we've seen them, but we're so looking forward to it. But anyway, back to this. I'm so glad that I've met you, once again through the power of networking with other musicians and great people, like Steven and Terry. And let's stay in touch, my friend. I'd like to do another show with you sometime. We can cover some more ground, and
Love that. And Terry Quinlan, when I did her show, I think it was 2008. It's still my favorite interview show that I've done. It was about a 2-hour thing, and I got to play, I don't know, 10 or 12 songs. But she's the one who, as you mentioned, you and Steven got to talking about, and her got to talking about things, and my name came up, and I really appreciate you doing this with me, and we've had great conversations on the phone. One of these days we'll sit down and keep this live, keep it going. So
I would love that, man. I would love that dearly, and thank you. Thank your wife Sharon for sharing you with me for this afternoon, and I've got to go do a little bit of editing and add some music in here, and we'll try to get this thing up on the air tonight. So
look forward to it. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, buddy. Let's talk real soon, okay, man?
Thank you.
You take good care of yourself, all right?
You too. I look forward to it. I love you. Thank you. I'm looking the wrong way.
That's all right. I love you too, man. And you take good care of yourself, all right?
Love you too, Rick. See you soon.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye now.